Greetings in today's episode in Preaching to the Choir. Why are people mad at the Game Awards again? Isn't this what we should all be expecting by now? Like, let's be honest here, the Game Awards were never truly worth watching. Usually, I tuned into the Game Awards to get information about what might be upcoming. Is there anything interesting? This time around I couldn't attend because I had more important things to do, such as sleeping and going to work. So I just looked up all of the games that released on a very conveniently available list after the fact. And that's basically all I got out from the Game Awards. A list of games that I put on my Steam wishlist wherever I saw interesting potential, and that's about it. The Game Awards were always kind of this, well, big advertisement. There's obviously a reason for it because you gotta pay for the show somehow. You know, you can't just run this overblown show on a shoestring budget. So therefore, obviously there needs to be advertisement in a way. But it's gotten to a very, very unlikable amount of advertisements that are being pushed in the show. And so why are people mad now? Is there something out of the ordinary that happened? Well, there's nothing surprising that's going on there. So I'm going to keep this a little bit short. This is also unscripted. So I'm just going to yap about this a little bit, my opinions, and tell you what's been going on. You probably know about this already. So the Game Awards are kind of just like the Oscars, right? Or at least they are very similar to it. They have higher viewing numbers than the Super Bowl, apparently. But it's kind of this self-indulgent, nepotism-filled, very decadent show where there's lots of self-aggrandizement going on, and there's obviously a snobby in-group of curators and VIP members that kind of get to decide what gets shown at the Game Awards and what is never going to be shown. You know, if you're a certain video game developer and you make certain games, the chances of your game or your studio appearing or being invited to the Game Awards is and always will be absolutely zero. Now, one of the games that were generating a lot of outrage was Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So let's talk about why Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and the studio, Warhorse Studio with Daniel Vavra, will probably never appear at the Game Awards show. The reality is Daniel is not part of the club, simple as. And pandering to possible journalism groups with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 obviously didn't work. So in short, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, its developer and its lead, its director, is just not welcome at the Game Awards. They're not part of the in-group of the community. That's why. If you're getting mad at why they're not included, that's the simple explanation. He is not welcome there. Simple as, and there's no real solution there other than, well, maybe don't give two shits about the Game Awards because, let's be honest here, why do you need a committee to tell you what games are good? I usually decide what game is worth playing or not on my own. I don't need a committee of game journalists and random content creators to decide which game gets the award nomination and gets onto the red carpet and gets to take home the win. I decide this for my own. In addition to that, you know, talking about nepotism, why do you think Hideous Kojimbo is just at the Game Awards every time, and every time he has a game, it at least gets the nomination for the Game Awards, if not some sort of win in some sort of category? Well, we all know why Kojimbo is always there. Let's be honest, I don't need to go in further detail about this. It should be pretty obvious. So that's the explanation. There's obvious nepotism going on, the choices of the curators, the choices who gets to attend and who doesn't get to attend. And no, if you're an undesirable, trying to pander to this crowd of people doesn't get you into the Game Awards either. That's the long and short explanation, so there's really no reason to be mad at it, because it was obvious that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 would never make an appearance there from the very beginning that this game released. Due to the history of the studio, the history of its lead director, that was why. So we can put a final note on this topic and move on. I think we can also talk about Expedition 33, which is the reason why most people are mad at the Game Awards currently at this point in time for some reason. Because if you've watched the Game Awards in the previous years, I don't know why you're surprised that this is kind of shit. But apparently, the fact that Expedition 33 was sweeping the Game Awards is a problem for certain people, and people are getting angry and mad at the fact that this game justifiably won a bunch of awards. I'm going to make this very simple thought experiment here. We have certain categories for the Game Awards, but we also have a category for the best game out of all of them. Now let me ask you the question. If a game wins best game of the year, doesn't that mean it is the best game out of all categories and therefore the winner? So we're making categories up where we're ranking games before we get to the big final release, the big final reveal. But then we're also saying, okay, there's a game that is the best out of all of them. So that means it should be the best and the winner in categories such as best music, best performance, best storytelling, best art direction, best art style, best in its category. Basically, obviously, Expedition 33 should sweep the awards because it was nominated as the best game. You can't just be the best game out of all of them, but you don't have the best music, and you don't have the best art direction, and you don't have the best storytelling, and you don't have the best actors in there, and you don't have the best art style. That doesn't really work together in a way. Maybe instead we should probably have less useless categories in the Game Awards, but we should also probably accept the fact that in reality, a game being the best also means that it is likely the best in most of the categories. Isn't that logical in a way? Why are we getting mad at this? Now, also, if you're wondering why are people getting very politically charged in a certain way at the developer, I tried to look into this. Envy is a hell of a drug. A lot of things that people are saying is coming from pure envious hatred. That's the reason why. Because as far as I can tell, neither Sandfall Studios nor Kepler Interactive was funded by the people that were insinuated. That's all I'm going to say about this, because it's absolutely insane what people are claiming about this game. So it just comes from a place of pure envy. Kepler Interactive is mostly founded by NetEase and its founding studios, and Sandfall Interactive is part of Kepler. So those are the investors that are sitting behind this. If you don't like the Chinese, I guess you don't like the funding that this game got, but there is no Israeli founder in there in the back somehow. That is pure imagination that people came up with. I don't know. Again, envious and hatred people who are unemployed and on the internet 24/7. That's the explanation for that outrage over there. And then also something that's pretty interesting to talk about is something that I would argue I can at least agree with in part, is that the fact that Expedition 33 swept all of the awards made it a little bit boring to watch, because from the very beginning I was certain that the game would win, and then it started happening, and even after the fact, to me, as somebody who didn't watch the show, it probably was a little bit boring knowing that, hey, best music is coming up. Oh, Expedition 33 is involved. Okay, so they're gonna win that one. And next category, okay, Expedition 33 is gonna win that one, It's obviously a little bit foreseeable and boring that way, but then again, maybe don't have that many categories or have different rules about who can win categories, but I still think that if a game is the best, then it means it probably also wins the most categories. That's just how it works, If you think this is boring, then don't watch the Game Awards, or only watch them for the game announcements, which is the most interesting part of the awards show anyway, let's be honest. Also, the one little thing that I'm in agreement with is Expedition 33 winning the Indie Game Award is a little bit strange. Again, I'm not saying that this game isn't worthy of a bunch of awards, but the fact that it was funded by Kepler Interactive, who has funding from NetEase, that is not a small amount of funding, that is not an indie studio. We're talking about a AA studio, and Expedition 33 was always a AA game to me, so it's a little bit strange that it got the win for the indie game. But you know what? If I have to settle with a AA game getting Indie Game of the Year and actually, an actual good game actually getting awards, then I'm probably fine with that, rather than having some Kojimbo game getting shoehorned in there or some last-minute Sony release getting like 5 different awards. I'm happy with what happened here with Expedition 33 because this is like an actually good game. It pisses off all the right people, and it also means that finally we got like a game that deserves the sweep, and it gets to sweep. No matter how you feel about it. Does it make the Game Awards a little bit more boring? Yes. Should it get Indie Game Award? No. Should it get the RPG Award? Yes. If you think this game isn't an RPG, then you should probably check out the game again. Expedition 33 is clearly a JRPG inspired game. It's an RPG. Just because it's not a classic RPG game doesn't mean it doesn't count into the genre. The genre of RPG has become very broad throughout the years. It isn't just your Oblivion type games that that are supposed to be counted as RPGs. No, Expedition 33 absolutely counts as an RPG game. And if it's the best game out of all of them, it should probably win the best RPG game in the category. Sorry to say, but that's how being the best out of all of the best works. You are literally at the top in most categories. That's how it should work. And that's it. Now, what about it? Well, I just kind of wanted to line out what happened here, give you the keynotes. I won't keep you for long. That's mostly what I wanted to say. It's nothing important, really. It's just kind of a bunch of terminally online people being mad at a justifiable winner. And then a few tisms that always happen at the Game Awards, weird shit that always happens there. We don't really know what's going on in the curators' heads. We don't know what's going on in Jeff's head most of the time. And this is how weird shit like this is always going to happen at these Game Awards show. Again, if you're upset at it, do as I and just don't watch it. You can always check out the games later on that were released there and teased. There's a very convenient list on IGN that you can look at, and then you can put those games on the Steam list, on your wish list, so you don't forget about them when they're inevitably released in like 1 or 2 years. And that's it. If you want to stay mad, but it's the way it is. It's understandable, it's justifiable that Expedition 33 won, and it's also very obvious why Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 wasn't at the Game Awards. That's it. I mean, most of the stuff that was announced there is weird Japanese gacha game slop anyway, so most of the games that are shown off there, they're like weird anime style. It's like you see one of the games, then you see the next one, then you see the next one, and if I somehow blacked out during the announcement, I would have thought they're still showing me the same game, because they all look the fucking same. So lots and lots and lots of the announcements were also kind of slop trash. So that's why it's very handy to have that list on IGN, so you can kind of sift through the games that are actually worth putting on your wish list. If you like gacha games, obviously, more power to you. Put those games on your wishlist if you would like to. But all in all, it was just yet another Game Awards show. Nothing special happening here, really. A justifiable winner? That's it. Kojimbo didn't get any awards, which I think is gonna do him some good. And yeah, that's it. Again, nothing really special happened. I don't know why people are mad, but I guess that's the internet. You're gonna find a way to get pissed off at something. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun, right? Anyway, that's it. See you next time.